Welcome to Everything House Music and More. And today's guest, we have Mr. Joe Smooth, legendary. Hey, Joe, how you doing, bro?
Oh, I'm good. How you doing, Mo?
All right. So we just going to jump into it, man, like how we always do. So, Joe, you're introduced to Quincy Jones, and he says, man, I know you. You're that house music guy. Now, tell me, what is house music musically to you?
What is house music musically to me?
Yes.
So first, I'd have to say house music musically is based on the rhythm. I think house music is geared towards the dance floor, the dancers. I think it's about it's making the music DJ accessible, DJ friendly. Is the base for it.
Right. So that's what you're gonna tell Quincy once you meet him. Huh?
Exactly. That's what I told him when I met him.
Oh wow! See, look at that. We didn't know that. Okay.
So and then it's the embodiment of most house music is based off of very like soulful vibes. It's a feeling. Right. It's
Keep going.
It's like like as a DJ, almost what I would want to experience if I was dancing on the floor, you know, separate from like, I guess like pop records, commercial records, music, R&B records you hear on the radio.
Right.
I think as a DJ, I'm looking for the mood,
right,
creating an atmosphere with the music. And something, like I said, that translates well on the dance floor. It's really, for me, it's about the dancers. It's about giving the dancers something that they can feel.
Okay, all right. So, Joe, for the people that really don't know your history, what was your first song or track you produced or made?
The first song I produced. Okay, so the first song I produced was actually was a set of like rhythm tracks. They didn't really have a name to it.
Okay.
Back in the early '80s when I would say like samplers and drum machines became more affordable.
Right.
I was DJing back at Smartbar.
Okay.
So I would take my the drum machine, and I had one of the first Mirage and Sonic keyboards.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I would take that into Smartbar, and I would just create songs.
Oh wow.
While I was DJing.
On the fly.
Okay. Right. And so a lot of that stuff was I would play that stuff because people would, if it was a certain song that people got into,
right, that
became something I would add into my set and stuff, regularly while I was playing.
So did you make a track just for the Smartbar while you was DJing there before?
Yeah. And that's something I've kind of carried over as the years go on. Like when I go do parties and stuff now,
right,
I create songs for the party.
So that was you was doing that before Promised Land. So
yeah.
Okay.
So that was 83.
That was 83.
Right.
Okay.
So
how were you introduced to the culture of house music before it was a genre?
Right. It wasn't a genre then.
Right.
So what ended up happening was Smartbar, with me playing the way that I did in Smartbar.
Okay.
Chip came in.
Chip Everhart. Okay.
So Chip came in, and he knew I had a Mirage and keyboard, and he was trying to put an EP together.
Right.
And so he asked if I'd come in and help him with the EP. So that's how the whole Jack Tracks thing ended up happening.
Okay.
So it was with Chip coming in. It was beginning of '84.
Beginning of '84. Okay.
So a lot of DJs used to come into Smartbar,
right,
and they would kind of. Smartbar was up on the north side, and they would kind of take the stuff back to the south side.
Okay.
So when Chip came in, like for me,
so was the north side more predominantly white crowd?
Yeah.
In the club?
Yeah.
Okay.
And as far as Smartbar was really an eclectic kind of club. It was predominantly white, but there was a good mixture of people that would go to Smartbar.
And this was like in the 80s?
In the 80s.
Okay.
So Smartbar opened in 82.
Right.
So when the house DJ left from Smartbar, Joe Shanahan asked me if I wanted to start take his place in DJ and stuff. And,
Okay.
so I started spinning there.
Okay. So how old were you at the time?
So I can't do math. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 2 is 4.
Oh, we don't want to tell Joe. Joe is timeless, y'all. He's timeless.
Right. So, so for me, when people talk about like the warehouse and house music getting to start at the warehouse and stuff like that, Smartbar is almost more influential for house music to me because this is where Time to Jack kind of came from.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so. A lot of people don't realize that what we started doing in Chicago, 83, 84,
right,
came after the warehouse. The warehouse actually closed in 82.
Okay.
So Chicago house music was never really played at the warehouse.
At the warehouse, okay.
So that's part of like the confusion with house music.
Right.
In its origins.
Okay, so since we're gonna go there with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, where did the name house music come from?
So at that time, I think you're dealing with teenagers basically.
Okay.
And so you had your parties on the South Side. You had your parties, teen parties, the high school parties. Stuff that was going on like the Aragon, the Bismarck,
right,
hotels and stuff like that. And so on the street, and some of the record stores, what would end up happening is like imports, etc. The shops like that,
right,
they would post stuff as music. This is music that's played at the warehouse or played at house parties, like with house music parties. So the name kind of organically morphed right, came from the warehouse. Just like these are the songs that are being played at this place.
Right.
But what happened was we as young producers and DJs took the name of the music that was being played there and kind of created a genre that was different than what the music was played, but it was like what our interpretation of a style of music that we were creating as DJs, stuff for us to play at the clubs. Right. It was just like additional stuff that we could have that maybe somebody else, the other DJs didn't have. Just kind of creating our own lane.
That's good that you said it because Wayne Williams said in my last interview with him,
music coming out of these houses, so they called it house music.
So
they were literally calling disco house music.
Well, there was some people who probably disagree with you about that. So you saying the term house music didn't come from the warehouse?
No, man, no.
It came from people just playing music in their house.
Having parties of disco music in their house.
There's a lot of confusion.
So let's try to clear that up because I'm trying to clear that up. So Wayne says that house music didn't come from the warehouse, and you saying that it did.
Right. So the problem comes in there's different sections of the city.
Correct.
Right. And so one person's experience might not be the other person's experience.
Correct.
If you weren't somebody who, like, I didn't really frequent the warehouse. Okay. I went there a couple of times, and it was music that was being played at the warehouse.
Right.
I won't say there was so many house parties that, at people's houses that people would say, okay, this is house party because it's being played at somebody's house.
Right.
So, I mean, like I said, there was different elements that created this whole situation with house. Like I said, the record stores were posting music. This is music that is played at the warehouse.
Right.
Or that would have been played at the warehouse. Because, the warehouse, you had disco, you had, you could be playing some Pink Floyd, you could be playing rock music. You could be playing
what year did the warehouse close at this time?
82.
So it closed at 82. So Jamie's record wasn't really playing. It wasn't playing at the warehouse at the time.
The power plant.
It was playing at the power plant.
Right.
Okay, got you. So were you playing Jamie Principles Your Love back in 83?
Yeah.
You were. So how'd you get it from Jamie?
So now, Smartbar.
Okay.
Was I played like a lot of eclectic music.
Okay.
So like a lot of these DJs, Frankie would come onto Frankie played at Smartbar.
Okay.
There was
back in the 80s.
Yeah, there was a like a private room on the third floor in Metro, and we would do like after hour parties and stuff like that. And Frankie would come do after hour parties. But Frankie would come to Smartbar.
Right.
Ron Hardy would come to Smartbar. Farley would come to Smartbar. A lot of the DJs from the South Side would come to Smartbar,
Right.
and a lot of times they would hear different music that they weren't hearing on the South Side and take it back to the parties.
Okay.
I would get like a lot of test pressings of like stuff like when Frankie Goes Hollywood came out.
Wow.
When
Okay.
I would get the test pressings and stuff
Right.
before a lot of the other people get stuff like
And
that.
testing them up there on the north side, right?
Right. Right.
Okay. So, Chip has often claimed Jack Track's EP was the first house record because of it was the first record that says house in it. Do you agree with that?
I'd have to agree with that.
So the Jack Track's EP is the first house record.
I would agree that it is really the first house record.
Okay.
So, you have On and On.
We got on. So why would you say that Jack Track's was the first house record?
Because it was really the first record that kind of embraced the culture of house music.
Okay.
The whole EP was about, it was, Chip was into marketing and all that kind of stuff. And the whole base around that was just to clarify what this music was, you got It's Time to Jack, you got His House,
Right. Yeah, which is
it's said this is what this music is,
Right.
So it's kind of like, it was kind of like a defining point.
Right. Telling people exactly what it was. Okay, so in that Jack Track session that you did, what was your part in there and what was Chip's part?
Chip walked in the door and opened the door. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
But,
That's how it goes sometimes, though. So y'all.
So it was really Eric E.T. Taylor,
Okay.
Chip,
Right.
and Kirk Landrum, myself.
Okay.
And so we all played part in the whole Jack Tracks
Okay.
EP. So my part, like I had keyboards. I was probably one of the only guys who played keyboards. One of the only DJs who actually could play.
Right.
So that was kind of my part, was getting the music together so that the music was
Okay.
right.
So did you actually help produce it, or you just
Yeah,
okay, you did.
Yeah, so it was help on the production
Oh,
side
okay.
and that. Chip did some drum programming.
Right.
I think everybody involved did something. With the like His House was just something crazy. I came with bass line wise and stuff like that.
Right.
At the time I was doing so with the Mirage I would hook up the drum machine.
Right.
And with the drum machines at that time, well now too, with the keypads you can assign notes to the pads. So I was just keeping in the scale and just kind of coming to something crazy for the.
So was
for the bass
mostly
line.
all the gear you was using yours, or was it rented, or?
Mine, and then the Chip brought 808 in with the. So yeah, it's basically just a couple of pieces of equipment. But it was predominantly mine on the sampling stuff, keyboards and stuff
that's
like
what
that.
a lot of people don't know that. It's always Chip as the front person for it.
Yeah.
So people don't really know the behind the scenes.
Right. So that's
like
me. That's me
and
doing Time to Jack. On
Right.
That. So that's
Is it
my
really?
voice. Right.
Get out of here.
Just tuned down Time to Jack.
Did you
right.
get credit for that as a writer?
No.
Oh wow! So you never got credit
people
for
know people randomly know there was a situation where Tony Mandaka from Imports said, Chip came in with a tape recorder and heard me say time to Jack and recorded it and used my voice, but that was me on the Time
That was
to
you
Jack,
on that.
right.
Wow. So see, I didn't even know that either,
Yeah.
man. Wow. Okay, just so if you could only pick one besides yourself, which Chicago DJ had the most influence on Chicago house music? Was it Frankie, Ron Hardy, Farley Keith, Steve Hurley, or Lil Lewis? In your opinion?
The most influence on house music.
It's tough, huh?
That is a tough one. Because influence. So influentially, I would have to go with Frankie. Just because he was a good ambassador for the music.
Okay.
Globally, he was a good ambassador for the music.
Right.
Everybody else, I think Ron played a part in the underground. I think Ron was more supportive of Chicago house music in Chicago. I think he played it more in the underground clubs. Frankie was a little more vocal, a vocal DJ, so he wasn't really big on the track.
Correct.
But on a global scale, Frankie was he was touring globally and supporting the music on a bigger scale than any of the other DJs from Chicago.
Okay, so that's your answer, Frankie Knuckles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so after Drac Tracks, you later became a staff producer for the label DJing International. How did that association come about, and like why not Tracks, and why you just went with DJ International?
So after Chip and I did the Jack Track CB. So
Right.
Initially Chip was selling the record out the trunk of the car and
Okay.
going to the places and that. But at a point, the demand became really big for the record, so
Right.
we needed some more distribution.
Okay.
And Rocky offered that distribution channel for
really?
the EP. So
Okay.
that's how I ended up over there with the International. And me being the guy who could play keyboards,
Right.
most of the guys who came in needed help working on their projects.
Correct.
So I ended up working on a majority of the Tyree, Fast Eddie, most of the original guys from DJ. I ended up working on a lot of their projects.
Wow. Okay. So tell us about your early relationship with Rocky Jones, and did he give you an opportunity, and did he take advantage of you also?
That Rocky
Because
Jones,
it was known that he took advantage of such said artists, Fast Eddie, everybody that was on the label.
So Rocky did give people an opportunity, because
Okay.
at that time there weren't a lot of record labels in Chicago interested in doing house music
Right.
or dance music. So Rocky, coming from a DJ background, kind of saw the future of what was going on with the music.
Right.
And so me coming in there, I got to work with a lot of great people. Got to, I was doing a lot of the engineering and stuff, and it gave me an opportunity to hone my skills
Right.
as a producer, engineer, writer, artist, and so as far as Rocky taking advantage, I think Rocky was business oriented, but not the greatest businessman.
Okay.
And I think a lot of what happens with people, as far as saying they were taken advantage of, it's almost like all the record companies in the world take advantage of you.
Right.
And it's really on you to kind of be versed in
The music.
the music business.
Right.
We
So
were
at that
kids
time-
back then.
At that time, were you diverse in the music
No.
industry? So you didn't know anything?
Not really.
Okay.
But I had common sense.
Right. Right.
So one thing that I did do was my initial contract with Rocky,
Okay.
I put a clause in there that said any music that was done before signing this contract,
Right.
you don't have any rights to it.
Oh wow. Okay. So
So
did
like
that.
Promised Land and all that was done before I actually signed the contract.
Really?
Right. So so he never really actually had the rights to it,
Okay.
but the way I looked at it, as long as things were being handled properly,
Right.
I wasn't going to make an issue out of it.
Right. You was good with it.
Right.
So
Until
you were actually a lot more educated than most of the kids when everybody was starting releasing records. So
Yeah.
do you know that regarding the unfair contracts, and did you go along with that? Were you telling everybody at the time, like, listen, I don't think you should do this, or what?
I did tell some people that, whether they wanted to listen. A lot of the guys back then were really just interested in releasing a record.
They just want to put that record out.
Get some quick money and release a record.
Right.
And I was fine with a lot of the stuff that was happening until I started to travel to Europe.
Right.
And then I used to talk to a lot of the record company people who Rocky did business with.
Right.
And they would give me a little more insight into what was actually happening. Because back in the States here,
You didn't know what was
you
going
would
on.
right when your publishing came from BMI, or ASCAP,
Right.
you might get a check for $30,
Right.
So
Right. You was
so that's
good
what you're saying. You say, okay, so this stuff's not doing good
Right,
anywhere.
Exactly.
Until I got over there and I started seeing what
Was
he
it-
had other deals that were doing, so the money was
wow.
being generated, but it wasn't trickling back to the States.
Right.
So at that point, I had approached Rocky and said, Rocky, just for accounting purposes, I want to, find out what my music is doing, and
did he give it to you?
He made a statement. He said, Joe, how long do you think you should be getting paid from this music?
Oh, wow.
And so for me, it was like, how long should you be getting paid for this music? So after that, I kind of did a little more due diligence into it. Okay. And, we went to court and I got all the rights to all my music back. And so, then I became handling my own business,
Okay. So at that time, you kind of shaped DJ International at that time too. Did Rocky ever come to you as like trying to be a partner like how Larry did with Vince Lawrence at the time with Trax Records?
So that was a problem for me too. I'm here helping him, make things happen, and it really never was brought to me to say, well, let's do a partnership, and then also talking with these record companies that he was doing deals with, a lot of the guys were like, we're only doing business with Rocket because we like what you're doing,
right?
So that became it didn't split us, but it just became a thing. Well, let me be a little more cautious with my business dealings.
You was like in the back of your head, you was like, I know what he's doing, so I'm gonna go ahead and do some different things.
Do my own thing,
right? Okay. So your biggest record to date as an artist yourself is Promised Land. Tell us in detail how that came about and why it's a feature and not just a record release on just the singer. Or the artist, I should say.
Okay, so originally Promised Land came about. So we went on a tour, like through Europe. And while we were on tour, this is before Promised Land, or, this
was it a DJ International tour?
DJ International tour.
Oh, wow, okay.
And so we went around Europe.
Okay.
And you get to places where, you get to Italy, Switzerland, you get to places where their main language isn't English.
Right.
So the way that we were received, regardless of the language of the songs and the way that people reacted to the music, just showed me that music was greater than the language barriers, than the cultures,
right.
And so for me, it was like an experience. Like, wow, music is so universal, and I wanted to write something that kind of it told of the experience of my experience on that tour.
So you wrote the lyrics and wrote the music completely.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So you're 100% on that one.
Right.
Okay.
So what happened is when I got back to the States,
right.
I sat down and said, okay, let me write something off of that experience.
Right.
And I think was a God inspired creation. Something it just came to me, and my idea was to make it like a classic record.
Right.
So, I used to listen to like Motown and Stevie Wonder, a lot of stuff like that. And so for me, I listened to a whole bunch of Motown records. Okay. And so tried to see how they were produced and stuff like that, and their arrangements and all that. And so I kind of took that and said, let me translate this into house, something that we would do. So that's where my writing direction came from.
Okay.
And then when I originally I sang the record.
Okay.
Okay. So I can sing it like if I was going to
demo it out.
Go out and right. And then Anthony had done a record for me, this record Going Down.
Okay.
Back before Promised Land.
Right.
So Anthony had done a song I was familiar with, Don Connolly. And I heard certain tones and textures on the record.
Right.
And so I got them both to do parts on it, and then I did, so we all three of us are on the record, singing on the record. And I just had them sing it how I would sing it. So I kind of just produced the vocals, because Anthony sings a certain way, and Don sings a certain way, but neither one of them sing the way that they sang on Promised Land.
So Anthony was the singer for Promised Land?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was Michael Benson.
No.
Oh, really? But he claimed it all the time.
No, no. Michael sang on the I'll Be There.
Oh, I'll Be There. Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
So it became a Joe Smooth record instead of... So now originally I was going to do it as an Anthony Thomas record.
Okay.
But on the production side, Benji came to me and said, "No, Joe, this is production. You should do it as a Joe Smooth record.
Wow,
Don't
okay.
do it as a, do it as a Joe Smooth, because this is a Joe Smooth. This is something that, like if you, let's say, Mo, you do a record
Right.
and you produce something, and it's kind of an embodiment really of your sound.
Yeah.
You may do it as a
Maurice
Maurice
Joshua,
Joshua
right.
featuring.
Yeah.
So that's really where all that came from, how it became a Joe Smooth project as opposed to an Anthony Thomas record.
Okay, so you touched on Benji, rest in peace, Benji.
Yes.
He was a huge part at that time. Tell us about Benji and you knew and what he did for house music.
So Benji Espinosa was like I said, rest in peace. He was a strong advocate of house music and the Chicago artists.
Right.
So what he did was, as far as marketing, distribution, he would push the Chicago sound, like New York, New Jersey,
Right.
Overseas. Like when the guys from the UK started hearing the music that was coming from Chicago, it was really because of what Benji was doing
Right.
as far as pushing the music.
Right.
So I think he was played a big factor in getting the sound heard.
And what was Benji title at DJ International at that time?
Benji didn't have a title. Benji, we don't know what Benji was. No, Benji owned Quantum Distribution, so he owned the distribution company.
Okay.
So that was who DJ was distributed through.
Ah, okay.
So they were just housed in the same. building.
House in the same place, and Benji just did all the distribution for him.
Right.
Good to know that. So, you were around for the emergence of both house and hip hop. Both struggled to get mainstream recognition at first. Why do you think hip hop got it and house didn't?
So I think the biggest reason house didn't get the recognition is because back at that time, Rocky and Larry were trying to brand the labels as opposed to branding the artists.
Right.
So with hip hop, you had artists that you could see and relate to.
Right.
With house music, you had a sound,
Right.
but the artists weren't featured. I think Promised Land is really one of the only videos that was done back then.
Right.
And I think if more artists had music videos or they were put in the press a little bit more, there were stories created around them, I think house music would have developed in a different light than it did.
Okay. Now, and you was also one of the trademarks in what Chicago created was hip house. So, how did that come about? And were you like in every session with Fast Eddie at the time? Since we're gonna call him the godfather of hip house, which is still house music.
Yeah.
Because I remember everybody's playing that record. That record was huge when it first came out. So, what was the stories from then back? Creating the sound of the hip hop sound.
So I mean that was really on Fast Eddie and him as a rapper.
Okay.
He wanted to embrace. It was really like a new sound. Him and Tyree.
Right.
It was really something new to do with house music. You got old records like TSOB.
Right.
But this had a different funkiness to it.
Yeah.
I wasn't in every session where Eddie, is talented on his own as a
Right.
producer,
Right.
as well. And he would come up with his own ideas. At that point when we were doing with Fast Eddie, it was me, Peter Black
Right.
was another producer.
Right.
Rest in peace, Peter
yeah.
Black, another talented person. Jerry McAllister came into the fold
Right.
a bit. So it was a lot of talented people that started coming into DJ International to help with the
Okay.
production and working. Because I couldn't do everything.
Right. So you think after that hip hop sound, Rocky went more commercial with that because he saw the success of the hip house being better than just the soulful house that you guys were doing earlier?
I think he was just kind of led in whatever direction was, becoming the most popular at any given point.
Right.
And the thing is, how do you get house more mainstream?
Right.
And so I think it became a challenge. But like I said, the challenge was really in the marketing and the branding that he didn't really wrap his head around.
Right.
So I think at the time, like I say, he's a social business person, but he
Right.
wasn't really on 100% on top of things.
Gotcha. and you were famously an owner of the New Warehouse Club. Tell us how that came about, and was there any drama with using the iconic name and everybody who was going to spend there?
So the New Warehouse. So when you talk about the New Warehouse,
Right.
that's real. I think really, like when you talk about house heads and stuff like that,
Right.
that's really the generation of where the house heads came from.
Okay.
Is the New Warehouse, and that came about because of just conversations with Rocky and Julian Perez. So all three of us were partners in
Okay.
the Warehouse, and the idea was really a place to be able to play music that we were working on to kind of get it the exposure,
Right.
try to build the music.
Right.
For me, like, I had studio monitors on the wall.
Right,
I
right.
wanted to,
Right.
I wanted the sound that I was getting in the studio in the club.
Right.
And I think we created. The Warehouse became almost like a destination point.
Right.
Because everybody came
Everybody
to the Warehouse.
So who was the original DJs that first started out at the New Warehouse?
So I was actually the main DJ upstairs before I had
Just
Mike
so everybody
Dunn
know that was on Randolph.
on Randolph and Halstead. Right. So I was actually the main DJ, Saturday night DJ upstairs, and then so I was DJing KLXC,
Right.
Armando,
Mike Dunn, correct?
Mike
came
Dunn
in
came in later. Came in a
Okay.
little bit later.
All right.
Because what ended up happening was it was a lot going on. So I was busy doing a whole bunch of stuff.
Right.
And Mike, I think, was Mike almost had a more commercially accessible sound.
Okay.
It was funky and commercially accessible. So we ended up putting Mike upstairs, and then I
Okay.
went and took the underground in the basement downstairs, so I could
So
kind of play whatever I
people
wanted
didn't know
to
it was
play.
different floors and different
was-
levels to the warehouse.
Right, it was 3 levels at the Warehouse.
Right.
So I played a little more underground, whatever I want to play downstairs.
Right.
So the underground in the Warehouse kind of almost reminded me of like Smartbar originally,
Right.
back in the 80s. So that was my kind of vibe.
Yeah.
I like the more decadent kind
Right.
of space. But everybody came and played. Gene Hunt,
Yeah.
Emmanuel, DJ Emmanuel. Fardy played there. Frankie played there. Ron Hardy played there.
Wow.
Everybody came through the Warehouse and played.
So being the club owner at the time, was there any drama behind the scenes that we don't know of?
Was there any drama? There's always drama.
I know that.
There's
So we
always
need to know
drama.
some of that. Come
Drama
on, Joe.
behind the scenes. There was the perfect place.
It was
There really wasn't really a lot of drama. I mean, I think the only thing that almost happened, Julie and I were going to take over the Warehouse.
Right.
but at a point, for me, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't,
Right.
For me, I just kind of, Julian stepped out, he sold his percentage of the Warehouse and
Okay.
kind of got out of it and started doing other things. It was just sometimes you have conflicts because Rocky wanted to go a certain way and we would want to go another way.
Right.
And like at a point, I got out of the Warehouse myself. I just like I said, I didn't need.
That's funny that you said it, because at the Warehouse it was different nights. So you
Right.
had like Latins in there. and
Come
then-
Friday
oh,
nights
right? And
or-
then Black was all the Black
Thursday,
was, right?
Saturday.
So, which one you think everybody gravitated more towards the Warehouse with?
It was both.
Okay.
I think both nights, all of the nights were very successful
Right.
at the Warehouse. There really hasn't been another club kind of embodying that spirit of the Warehouse. Like the Warehouse was like a family,
Okay.
and it still is. Like a lot of the people still party together. They
Right,
used to go to the
exactly.
Warehouse,
Right. So, Joe, name one house record you wish you produced from a creative perspective, a creative perspective, but not sales.
Creative perspective.
Yeah, name a record that you think that you was like, I wish I produced that record.
What was very creative.
It don't have to be creative. I'm just saying, not from a sales point. So it became popular and it sold, thousands, millions, whatever copies.
Whatever it sold. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just something from a record that you'd be like, I wish I did that record.
I can't really think of any records I wish I did, but
From anybody else's time. Oh wow.
yeah,
Really?
yeah.
All right. So let me ask you this: name me your top 3 house records?
My top 3. I don't really have top 3 house records.
You got.
I can give you top 3 producers.
Okay, give me top 3 producers then.
So Lil Lewis,
Okay.
I think he's very talented.
Right.
I have to say me.
Okay. Besides yourself.
Oh,
Joe.
beside myself.
Besides
No, okay.
yourself, so you got Lil Lewis, right? Come on now, the ego kicking in.
I'm
y'all.
just kidding. But right. So Lil Lewis.
Right.
I like what Louis Vega.
Okay.
And there's a guy. What's the guy? Maurice Joshua.
Come on.
No, really, no. You're one of my top producers.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely,
Appreciate that.
absolutely.
Good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it right here. The legendary Joe Smooth. Thank you for joining the show at Everything House Music and More, Joe. I appreciate this, man. Taking time out doing this for us. And remember, you can see him all on social media. Joe is out and everywhere. And you have anything else to say before we close up, Joe?
Just if you love the music, apply yourself. Don't let the obstacles get you down.
True.
And you have a lot of DJs who complain about not being able to play somewhere.
Right.
I think you guys need to create your own lane. When I first started DJing, there were 1 million DJs on the South Side.
Right.
And so I went up north and created my own lane at Smartbar.
Correct.
And not to say, it's the market is oversaturated. And another thing, DJs complain about not being able to play. There's only so many places, and every DJ can't play.
Right.
Because there's only so many places to play. So, if everybody was playing, nobody would make any money, and this whole culture would kind of vanish because nothing it wouldn't be successful because it's just there's not enough room for everybody.
Right.
But create your own lane,
Absolutely. All right, y'all heard it there from Joe Smooth himself, y'all. So once again, thank you, Joe. I appreciate you, man. God bless.